Welcome back to the third and final segment of this show. I'm your host, Abul Hasnath, and we have been talking about Donald Trump's victory at the elections, the effects of Brexit. We also mentioned Jo Cox, which I'll come to very smoothly. So, this is NTV exclusive. We've been talking about community matters. There have been plenty of talking points. We're looking at the spring wind, the Boshanto Batashe. Trump's victory, maybe there was a bit of music and adda in it. I don't know. What is the news today? There's so much for us to talk about there. Ain and Odikar, is that really good? Is there going to be any law and justice with Trump in place? I have absolutely no idea. Will he give us a legal update? I highly doubt it. Is he going to give you a travel permit? Once he won, he said, no way you're getting a travel permit. Is he going to give you a work permit? No chance. Oh, God. How many more things? I think the only thing that he's going to be good for, he's going to give us a motor solution maybe, because he likes his cars. For those of you that watch NTV regular, I've just mentioned 12 NTV shows in that one, in those 3 sentences. Those of you that catch on, please email across the bottom or send something to me on Twitter, Hasnath456. You send me on Twitter and tell me if you caught all the shows that I just mentioned in those 2 sentences. But that's the joke of Donald Trump. Adnan Bhai, thank you for staying on the show with me.
Thank you for having me.
Enough of the jokes from me and the playing with words. We need to get into serious matters because Jo Cox, that was a very serious thing, and that sort of, for me, my personal opinion, of course, apologies on the mic there, but my personal opinion on that was that with that sentencing, brilliant, because we know and we have a lot of faith in our British judiciary system. The way litigation has gone about, the British get it right, but the media fail us miserably. And the fact that Jo Cox's murder, unlike any other murder where there would have been a life sentence, this was a life sentence tariff. This guy ain't coming out at all. But Daily Mail put it on page 30. How horrendous is that? The only person that I could think of that really made an issue of it is someone I'm a big fan of, James O'Brien from LBC, sort of made it really popular and put it on Twitter, put it on Facebook. But what that's telling me is the media are almost influencing the title of our show, are they not?
Well, to a certain extent, they are actually. It's not just Daily Mail, even Evening Standard. The verdict, the court verdict that was on, page number 6 or 7, but it should be at the front page of any newspaper actually. So it's not just Daily Mail. So many medias, they actually fail to recognize that this is actually a terror attack. This is a far-right attack on one member of parliament who've been campaigning for civil rights. Before she became MP recently in 2015, she was head of policy and advocacy of Oxfam, a charity that actually championed human rights, civil rights, so many other good things across the whole globe. So she was a champion of people. She was a people's representative. And she, on her maiden speech, she said actually what she found during her time when she was doing campaign and when she was growing up in Yorkshire, there are more in common that actually divide us. And this is definitely a far-right a rise of far right, and that attack on her was actually very well planned. That man, Thomas Meyer, he was doing enough research on weapon, how to kill, and we should not forget that when he was shooting, Jo Cox, he was saying Britain first. That's the word. All the witness, they said Britain first. But you are absolutely right saying that the mainstream media in UK, they failed to recognize that the murder of Jo Cox should be given that sort of focus that they gave during Lee Rugby's murder. Is the same thing. The murder of Lee Rugby, the way he was brought in front of media, the way he was criticized, the way he was under media scrutiny, same way media should focus on Thomas Meyer as well. So I think this is, to a certain extent, this is a failure of media. This is a failure of the society identifying that they are same sort of people. They just, one of them belong to North Pole, another person belong to South Pole, but both of them, they are radical, they are extremists. One is far right, another is religious radical person, but they are both of them, they are radical, they are extremist. And her murder was that guy was planning for so many years. He was doing research, and it came to media. He was doing research on his computer, how to how to shoot people, where to shoot. So it was a very planned matter, and he used to belong to one of the far right group. And he was shouting Britain first when he killed. So but it's a failure of media, I must say.
I mean, it's going to help us smoothly move on to the European scene on what I'm about to ask you now, because Thomas Meyer, he was described in the media as being a loner, a sad individual. I mean, they used so many different adjectives for him, but it just showed the characteristics of a sort of isolated individual, similar to those attacks in Paris. Mm-hmm. And the individual that drove that truck
Van,
across all those the pedestrians, those that were involved in the Charlie Hebdo shootings, those that were involved in on the multiple attacks on that night of football, they all shared the same characteristics. But now we're now talking about France, and if we now move off the Atlantic of USA and now actually come across the English Channel off the UK, when we come into mainstream, mainland Europe, France, double standards, elections coming up for them. I mean, what's the future of France?
Well, there are two reasons why there is a rise of far right in Europe. It's not just happening. The far right is not just campaigning, promoting their agenda in UK. They are doing it in France, they are doing it in Austria, they are doing it in Greece, they are doing it in even Germany. And in recent election, in last 2-3 years, they have gained number of seats in local council, in parliament. And it actually happened, from my understanding, it happened because of two reasons. First of all those so many people around the globe, they think Europe is a great place. But if you look into different parts of the Europe, the growth, the economy, the lifestyle is not same. Also, at the same time, there are cultural differences. EU sometimes is bureaucratic. There are remoteness in EU. Is very bureaucratic. Sometimes it is out of touch. Some people think it represents the big cats, the big business and multinational. So number one is actually slow economic growth in many parts of the Europe. And the second one is actually this war that is going on in Middle East. For so many years, America and all its allies from Europe, the war that they are doing for so many years, it articulated a viral of crisis, not just across Middle East, but in Europe. The refugee crisis is the biggest, one of the biggest problem for Europe. You see the politicians in Westminster, politicians in Brussels, they keep talking about it for months after months, but they fail to come up with one solution. They failed to come up with one solution where every country is playing their role. Why only Germany? Why not other countries? You see, so when there is when the lifestyle of European people hasn't changed as significantly, rather they have seen that there is a refugee crisis, there is a cultural clash, there is a cultural differences. It is very easy for politicians or for campaigner or activist from far right, in order to fuel some sort of anger within common people, saying that you're not getting a good job, you cannot get a council flat or a house, or you cannot send your kids to a good school because of those refugees, because of those immigrants. But at the end of the day, we need to recognize the slow growth of Europe. Southern Europe is going out of business completely. Greece, Italy, the unemployment rate of Italy is so high. Greece is a bankrupt country, but it is part of EU. If European Union, of course, European Union was successful bringing. It was successful. It was a major success in terms of bringing all those nations together, those who were fighting each other. But then, if it was all about solidarity, what's happening in Greece, what's happening in other parts of the Europe? So first one is slow growth. Number two is the refugee crisis, which is a failure of political willingness of European politicians, and that actually lead to the rise of far right in Austria, in UK, in France, in Germany, in Greece, in Hungary, in Slovakia, and you just mentioned about presidential election in France. This Trump effect, Brexit, definitely. So many politicians, they said no. There is Trump. The rise of Trump, Donald Trump, has got nothing to do with Brexit. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think definitely it had some impact. Because definitely it had impact. And then after Trump, I am sure there will be some sort of influence in next year French election. And that lady from National Front, Marie Le Pen, she is doing quite well in terms of in terms of reaching out to the common people, in terms of dividing the people, and also at the same time we do need to recognize that Europe is like America. Immigrants, they have been coming to Europe for so many years from Asia, from Africa, and from many parts of the world. But then at the end of the day, although they got citizenship, they are part of the society. But if you look into the socio-economic structure, they face lots of discrimination. The young immigrants, the second and third generation, they feel victimized by the system. So they are holding, maybe they are holding one of the European Union country's passport, but in day-to-day life, they do not feel part of the society, which actually lead to the problem that happened in Belgium, the problem that happened in France. All those young people, those who were planning for those attacks for so many years, if you look into their personal life, if you look into their family, most of them, they were recent university graduate. They were looking for a job, but they could not find a job because of institutional racism. The immigrants they face in Europe or in America or in in developed countries. So institutional racism is there. The slow growth is there. Refugee crisis is there. The cultural clash is there. And the politicians, they fail to recognize all those problems. They keep talking, but fail to come up with a solution.
It's I mean, the last few minutes that we have of this this show, I mean, that leads us on to really capitalism, and I mean, where do we start?
Well, I think globalization is a good thing. Globalization, if globalization is all about sharing and caring, it's a good thing. If you invent a new medicine in UK and if you share the knowledge and research with the rest of the world, it is a good thing. And that was the main ethos of globalization. But the moment politicians and businessmen, they tried to implement capitalism in the dimension of globalization, problems started happening. And so many people, so many common people across the globe, particularly in Western countries, they feel alienated, they feel deprived. They feel deprived, they feel the politicians, the establishment no longer represent them. And the only way they can actually, they can actually articulate or they can actually demonstrate their anger is by vote. So I do not necessarily agree that all the Trump supporters or Brexit supporters, they are actually, they are racist or, Islamophobe. But at the end of the day, those people are victimized by the, liberal free market economy. And I think politicians, all the, politicians, scientists, researchers, economists, they need to come up with a solution how we can find an alternate where everyone is progressing, everyone is finding the system is representing them.
Adnan Bhai, a big thank you to you.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate your outlook in this situation. That's all I have time for. I wasn't able to take any calls or anything at all on this because in this short time we had such a big topic to deal with. I hope this has been enlightening for you. I hope you've maybe it's given you a different outlook, and maybe it's helping you to plan for your future. But for me, Abul Hasnath on NTV Exclusive, that's it for tonight, and I'll see you next week. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.